Hello, welcome to another SEL group starter. I am Delisa Fields with Student Discipline and Behavior Support. I am a training and quality coordinator. And so if you have been following any of the videos that I have done in this series, I'm certainly hopeful that you found them helpful and that you have been able to adapt them and modify them according to what suits your student. So let's get started. This particular video is going to speak to the SEL competency of social awareness. And true to the work that I like to do, I like to align them with the Caring School community curriculum. So this particular lesson will align well. And of course, you can modify it and you can adapt it and make it work for you. But it will work well with grades 6 through 8, and even high school, but we don't have high school curriculum but for caring schools, but you can certainly use um, the framework that's been provided for grade 6 through 8, and you can again modify it, make it, own the material and use it for your high school students. As a matter of fact, I think it would probably work a lot better. I think you'd gauge some more conversation with high school as opposed to middle school. But we're going to look at a song entitled This Is America. It was written by Donald Glover. I'm not certain if you've had a chance to listen to it or not. It is a little bit dated, but it is a trending song. And you don't have to listen to it to facilitate the group, but it will be helpful. But it's going to look at several of his lyrics, several thematic elements of his lyrics, and we're going to marry that with our social awareness competency and teach this lesson to our students. So it's going to work really well with middle grades, high school grades. It's also going to correlate with your weeks 3 and 4 in the Caring School Community Teachers Guide. And it's also going to work well with the 3 topics: building a caring community, taking responsibility for actions, and using social media responsibly. All right, so again, adapt it accordingly and make it work for you. Okay? So first thing that you want to do with your group is set your norms. Um, I like to use this little acronym for groups: give thoughtful feedback, respect others and their thoughts, on task all the time. And this is going to be very important, particularly with this particular focus discussion, is to keep your group on task. And you may have to refer to these norms from time to time. So if you're facilitating group from a virtual session, maybe just having a printout or some other type of graphic to show a picture or something to show on your screen, if you have to remind the group of the norms. So staying on task all the time, using soft voices, participating actively, and staying with your group. I like to say here, when we talk about participating actively, that's going to look different for each of your students. There are some students who you'll find are more introverted, and so they may not, provide as much feedback as you would probably expect. Just work with where they are. Um, and then you'll have those students who are extroverted and they'll try to dominate the discussion. So I like to say that your students own the group, but you control it. You're gonna navigate it, and but you let them set the GPS, but you navigate where it goes. Okay. All right. And so our objectives for this particular group is to build and maintain, because again, we're focusing on social awareness. Social awareness. So we're looking to build and maintain positive relationships with others that are centered to success, not just in school. I think I said this in another video, is that we're not just teaching them these SEL skills to use in school so that we can manage our classrooms, but we also want to we want to implement the usage of these skills that can translate to the workplace or college or family, career, whatever their goals and aspirations are. Another objective is to acquire the ability to recognize the thoughts, feelings, and perspectives of others. So social awareness is going to differ from self-awareness, where we're not self-centered, but we're person-centered. We're focused on the other person. how they're feeling. We're paying attention to their emotions. We are being empathetic to their thought process. So you're looking at others' perspectives that are different from your own, and it's okay. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's okay to have a different perspective. That's what makes the United States a unique fabric, right? Because we're blended. We come from just different backgrounds, different experiences, and all of that. And we're trying to make up this beautiful nation that we love so dear. Another objective is to establish positive peer, family, and work relationships. So as we learn how to recognize another person's feelings, look at, you know, their actions from their perspective through their lens, this will help us to build or to establish some positive relationships. And lastly, we're going to acquire skills in cooperating, communicating respectfully, and constructively resolving conflicts with others. And so we want to build that into our discussions as we're asking questions. We want to use those objectives as a foundation for teaching this particular lesson. So the purpose of the group is to recognize the feelings and the perspectives of others. And this is where this song, This is America, comes into play. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But we want to look at, because yeah, I'm African American, an African American female, but I can't assume that the way that my Caucasian male counterpart, the way he views this is America, he may view it from an entirely different perspective, and rightfully so, because our experiences are different and we're coming from different places. And so in order to reach this place of social awareness and to have consideration for mankind, then we have to recognize others, the feelings of others. We may not agree, right? We may not agree, and it's okay. It's okay to disagree, okay? All right. So we want to recognize individual and group similarities and differences, use communication and social skills to interact effectively with others, and demonstrate an ability to prevent, manage, and resolve interpersonal conflicts in constructive ways. So as we prepare for the main thrust of the lesson, we want to put our homework in. We want to do some footwork. And so before we engage into the discussion, let's first check in with our students and let's see how they're feeling. That's very important. In the feelings check-in, you're going to find out so much that's going to help you, you know, if we're returning to the classroom, or even as you proceed in the group discussion, it's going to give you some valuable feedback into where your students are emotionally and mentally. And I often say, and I'll say this in the next slide, is that you will know how to proceed when you know how your student feels. You'll know whether to go, slow down, or stop and do something altogether different. So having that feelings check-in is so vitally important. So make sure you have a copy of the feelings chart or the mood meter. We use those terms interchangeably. If you don't have a copy of it, feel free to reach out to me by email. My email is listed at the very end of the presentation, and I'll make sure to email a copy of that. And you can print. I've got several laminated copies because I use them a lot. But make sure you have a copy of the feelings chart handy. You can upload it or whatever your thing is. Those emojis will help students, particularly our younger students, help them identify their feelings. It's strategically placed throughout the chart. And it's going to help them, it provides the proper words for their feelings, because they'll say things like, I don't know how I'm feeling, or I feel some kind of way, or I don't know. And so we want to coach them into learning how to feel comfortable expressing how they feel. There's no shame in telling someone, I feel intimidated, I feel embarrassed. You know, these again, we're building social emotional skills. So we want to explore the feelings chart, and this is for you, okay? The feelings chart is divided into 4 quadrants. We have the yellow, we have green, blue, and red. I'm going to go over that in just a minute when I actually get to the chart. But in sharing out, and many times in my groups, I would model. I would say good morning or good afternoon. My name is Mrs. Fields, and today I am feeling tired. And then I would tell them why I'm feeling tired. And so I would model that for them, and then I would circle the group and poll my students. Give me your name. Many times I'd say, you know, because I ask them what school they're from, if that applies. And then I would say, okay, tell me how you're feeling and then why. And so you would be amazed over time, especially if you're spending some extended time with that student, they become so comfortable with sharing their feelings. And so you know that you've done a pretty good job at making them comfortable with their feelings. So make certain that you're not judging them or criticizing them. For example, why are you tired? You don't have a job. You're a kid. You don't necessarily have to validate their emotions and agree with it, but acknowledge it. Acknowledgement of a person's emotions is critical in them feeling comfortable moving forward. So make certain that you're not judging them, excuse me, or criticizing the student for the feeling that they decide to share. They need to understand that it is helpful to and very beneficial to share their feelings, and they shouldn't feel afraid to do that. They shouldn't be chastised for the way that they feel. Okay. And so once they share that feeling, even if it's a negative emotion, they may be in the red, high energy, low pleasantness. They may say, I have students say, I'm angry. And so I said, okay, well, why are you angry? Well, because I got in trouble and it wasn't my fault. Okay. All right. So tell me what happened. And so then and let me just go ahead and go to the next screen. And so what you do, I like to say you walk them across the street. So you have a student who says, I'm feeling angry. Right. So my job now, because that student has opened up and has made me aware of how they're feeling. Now the burden is on me because number one, I want to make sure that that student has a successful day. Number two, I want to make sure that the environment that we're in is a safe one. I have to look out for my colleagues, for staff members, the students. And so now I'm tasked with, I like to say, walking this student across the street. And so that's going to take time. You may have to pull that student and speak with them on a one-on-one. So it's so important to know where your students are so you know what interventions that needs to be put in place to help de-escalate, okay? So again, I was telling you about the four quadrants. We have the yellow, which is high energy, high pleasantness. We have green, which is low energy, but still low energy, low pleasantness. We have blue, which is low energy, low pleasantness. And then we have red, high energy, low pleasantness, okay? So anytime you have students in the red or blue, you want to do the very best you can. Walk that student down from the red. If you can't get them to the blue, try to get them to the red, to the green. You can give them the yellow, pat yourself on the back, you did a wonderful job. But we want to move them out of this quadrant, okay, for a variety of reasons. So again, before you proceed in the lesson, just pause and check on your students' emotions. You don't want to focus so much on, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this through, that again, it becomes self-centered. It's about what I have to do and what I need to do. You want to make sure that you are focused on your students' welfare. So as you prepare to move forward, should you ask yourself, should I pause? Remember with the student who said, I'm angry because I got in trouble? Maybe listen, I've had groups where I've had to come, no matter how prepared that I have been. I mean, I've got the quotes, I've got the clips, I've got everything, right? And I'm ready. I've got all my lesson plans, everything, I've got it ready. And then I have a student who's stuck here. And then guess what? Other students said, well, yeah, you know what? I feel angry when I'm picked on or whatever. And you know what? Remember what I said? The students own the group, you control it. I change. I'll shift and make an about face. And then we'll talk about that. And we'll make an entire SEL focus on how do we, we'll turn it into self-management. So yeah, my focus, I planned and did all of this work for social awareness, but guess what? My students need self-management. And so this is why it's so important to be well-versed in those 5 competencies of social emotional learning, because you don't know where your students are. And if you try to proceed with, especially this type of lesson, if you decide to do it, I mean, just because I'm presenting it doesn't mean you got to use it verbatim. I just want you to get some ideas off. You don't have to use Donald Glover's This Is America. You can use Katy Perry or some of these other, you know, genres of music or whatever. You just want to get the insight and pull and walk away from this with some tools. So you don't have to necessarily use it. You may be assigned to K5 or K2, and I mean they would know this from a man in the moon, right? But you're developing the skill set to take whatever the competency is, and you can use your imagination and use your creative liberty, and you can make that discussion a very fruitful, meaningful discussion for your students. So you don't necessarily have to use this, but yeah, you'll have times. I've had times when I prepared groups, and it just would not go where I wanted to go, right? And so then at that point, I have to listen to my students and support them where they are. Because if I proceed with this particular lesson, which is going to cover some challenging topics, especially in our country today, I don't want to take students who are in the red quadrant, in the high energy, low place. I don't want to take them to this group. It's not helpful to take them to this group. So, just be mindful that regardless of what you planned for your group, things change. And so always have a backup or just become well versed enough. I'm planning and drafting as many videos as I can to make you feel more comfortable. Some of you are very experienced in this. And I mean, you could do this, with your eyes closed. But then there are others, realizing that this particular year, the district has implemented, district-wide social emotional learning. So, and I'm getting feedback. These lessons are built based upon feedback that I'm receiving, honestly, particularly from high school teachers who are just like, okay, what are we doing? So you become well versed, okay, and go where your students are. Don't take them where you are. Go where they are, and then walk them across the street. Right? Okay, good. So let's move into what is social awareness. And so here we've checked in with our students, and we're determining that they're in a pretty good place. So we want to proceed with presenting the lesson. So what is social awareness? And so here you want to poll the group. Okay, hey, anybody who can tell me what social awareness means? And they may know, they may not. It's okay. But at some point, you want to provide the definition. And social awareness is the state of being informed of opinions, events, and institutions that affect the person, family, and society at large. So again, this is not about you. It's being informed about how others think, how they feel, how things are governed. It's recognizing another's emotions, using emotions to guide those decisions. We just did that with the group, right? You got a student on red. Well, now I'm socially aware that little Johnny is angry. So instead of me proceeding to this lesson, I'm going to spend time and use my social awareness to support Johnny, understanding how others view a situation, and being aware of one's own cultural identity and differences of culture. Sorry, I paused there. I got some notifications coming in. All right, so let's now poll our students and let's make connection before we present the content. So let's have our students briefly share personal examples when they were engaged in social awareness. Again, this is going to look different. You got to pay attention to your students because you're going to have that introverted student who said, I don't know, I don't know what that means. And, their participation is going to be minimal. It's okay. Believe me, they'll open up by the time we get to the focus of the lesson. But you want to ask questions, they may say, well, I remember a time when, my elderly neighbor needed their trash taken out. The truck was coming through the neighborhood and, it was trash day and they couldn't get out there fast enough. So I was socially aware of what my neighbor was going through, how they were perceiving whatever, and I stepped in to help. Another student may say, well, I walked a new student to class because they got their schedule and didn't know where the 400 building was. Socially aware. I was aware that they were feeling intimidated, or they may have been afraid or ashamed. And so I stepped in to support that need. And so that's kind of that feedback you want to give back. So they'll say, well, I walked a new student. And so then you may say, wow, well, so you were aware of, let's say, Brian's feelings of intimidation or feelings of failure or what have you. And so you want to support. So again, you want to take those objectives, take those purposes, and you want to provide them that positive reinforcement, that feedback, so that they can understand that, yes, that is an example of social awareness. Or one student may say, well, I refuse to laugh with a bully. Wonderful. So you were able uh, to connect with the feelings of the student who was being bullied. And instead of laughing with the group, you were more concerned with the person that was being bullied. And so you provided social support by being socially aware of how the other student was feeling. And they may say, yeah, yeah. But again, you're going to plant the seed, and over time it will grow and harvest into something beautiful. Another example may be, I saw a fight that was about to break out in the bathroom, and I went and got Mr. Brown, or I told them stop, or whatever. So again, those are examples of being socially aware. So just let them share out, and then you provide that positive feedback and give them, and they may give you an example of self-management, and you can even use it as a teachable moment and say, well, you know what, it sounds more like self-management. If you would have done this, then this would have qualified, or it would have it would have spoken more to you being social aware. But good, glad you stepped in and broke that up, right? Okay. So now we're going to get into the main thrust, the main meal, entree of the focus, which is this song, This Is America by Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, which is his rap ego. Um, and this is definitely an SEL lesson on social awareness, right? You see all that in the background. And what I love to do too, I don't know how much we can do that right now, but having pictures, printed out pictures, maybe posters, I don't know what the budget is, but you will be amazed at what those what I want visuals will do to enhance that group. Okay. So let's look at this. And I listen, warning, warning, warning. I would not, under any circumstances, play that song, even the clean version. I would not. In this particular instance, I encourage you, let's say that, to walk your students through just a few segments, stanzas of the song. It is inappropriate overall. And I use that word loosely. The message is clear. Let me just say that. And I thoroughly enjoy listening to it. However, I would not introduce that to my students because of the nature of the song. It is very disturbing, but it is a painful truth. But I maintain to tell you, your students have heard this song. They've heard it. They know the dances to it, all of that. But I wouldn't, as a professional, as an educator, I would not present it. And so I'm going to walk you through how I would engage this group using segments, some of the song's lyrics. But yeah, I wouldn't say, hey, let's watch this video or let's listen to it. I wouldn't, and it's just me. Your group, you poll your group and you do you. But I would not, okay, play that song. Not even, I listened to the clean lyrics and I was like, no, I just wouldn't do it. So in this, you want to do the background. You want to do the footwork on this one, and have lyrics sort of all the ones you choose. I have 3 sets, and I'll show you this in just a minute, that I would use, um, or themes of the song that I would use. But you roll with whatever is comfortable for you, you know? You may want to act the part out. You may want to rap it yourself. I am not a rapper. That is just not my gift. So I think my students would be in the blue by the time I got done with that one. But just use wisdom and caution as you proceed. Very, very controversial song, but it is a painful truth nonetheless, and a very strong point that you can use to teach your students social awareness. So you want to use very structured guidance for this discussion. I would revisit the norms, okay, and say, hey, before we get started, let's make sure, X, Y, Z, remember acronym group. I would steer, remember they got a GPS, but you're steering. When you see them wanting to introduce sections or lyrics of the song, or thematic elements that are just not feasible for classroom discussion, you want to say, well, you know what, that may be uncomfortable. Let's stay here. We're safer here. And you provide those guidelines. You provide those buffer zones. Don't let your students take it and run with it, okay? Because they will. They'll try to take it and run, but you pull them back, okay? All right, so what I found in this particular SEL lesson on social awareness, I found 3 themes that married the Caring School Community Curriculum. And so it's building a caring community, taking responsibility for actions, and using social media responsibly. And so what I've done is I've taken those three themes and separated them out, and I've built a discussion from each one. Now, this particular lesson, um, you can honestly, depending on how you pace it, you can use this group lesson for a couple of days, depending on the discussion that you are, the dialogue with you and your students. This is, I wouldn't, me personally, I wouldn't be able to facilitate this, all of the group plan here in one group, not unless you got an hour and so, some time. Um, but, feel free, again, you want to own it, you can chop it up. Hey, this week, class, guys, group, we're going to talk about social awareness. We're going to do a group focus, and you move that way. So again, you want to own it and just make it work for you, or for the next 2 days, this is going to be our theme, this is going to be our focus. And so that way you don't feel rushed. You can give the lesson the time that it needs to air, that it needs to breathe. So again, I separated this group into those three elements. Okay, so we're going to introduce the song, and we're going to get into the lesson. And so again, remember, my first theme was building a caring community. And so here, and what I've done is taking quotes, because I refuse to use lyrics, but I've taken quotes because I'm assuming, and I'm pretty much aware, and you could ask, how many of you have seen the video? How many of you have heard the song? So again, you're just going to gauge the temperature of where your students are, where their knowledge base is. And so then you just pull out certain sections of that song and build your discussion. So building a caring community, that's my theme, that's my goal, that's my focus, is to have a talk surrounding a caring community. And so here, this is a quote by Mahita Gajanan. I know I just mutilated his word, I'm sorry. But he says, the final moments of the video, and this is actually a snapshot from the final moments of the video, shows Gambino running, terrified, down a long, dark hallway away from a group of people as he sings, "You just a black man in this world, you just a barcode A." So Gambino's spirit goes back to a long tradition of Black Americans having to run to save their lives. According to Ramsey, who says one song dating back to slavery in the 19th century was called Run, Blank, Run. And you can use your imagination and plug that word in. And so he says, a Black person running for his or her life has just been a part of American culture dating back to slavery. And again, that's who this is by. So the discussion I would build around this is, why should a Black man feel as if he has to run for his life? We're talking about building a caring community. What would make a community safe for a Black man or for a Latino, or again, you want to build discussion and ask questions, and just be in control of where your responses are, particularly if you have, African Americans in your group. They're going to speak from a place of passion. And so you want to always steer that back to a community caring. How can we make your community a caring community? What do you need from, other races in order to feel safe, so that you don't feel like you're running, so that you don't feel as if you are reconnecting somehow with something your ancestors had experienced in the 19th century? And just gauging, look at his eyes, look at the fear, look at the chain around his neck, look at the sweat, and look, his eyes are pointing down, right? So these are some really good pointers in terms of how we can talk about what makes us a caring community, what makes a community safe. We are respecting humanity, we respect the decisions of others, we offer people equal opportunities, things of that nature. Again, you want to gear this around social awareness, not self-management. Well, I would turn around and fight back. That's not where we are. We're talking about social awareness. How can we make society aware of the fears of an African American man in this 2020 that correlates to something that happened in the 19th century? All right. So another thing that I will pull out is taking responsibility for actions. This is from Time Magazine. It was written by Joe Manduke. And he says, we see Gambino accompanied by school children who dance with him. However, the video continues to escalate with conflicting images of him dancing with children while more violence seems to be going on just out of focus or in the background. The video could be suggesting that the society's collective view of the topic is, in fact, out of focus. And so you will see if you decide to look at the video, you'll see some blurred sort of images. So are we seeing clearly? Or do we see what we want to see? It's also fitting that children would be at the center of the chaos. I love this part personally, as the problem would certainly have an effect of or on future generations. So again, we're going to talk here about taking responsibility. How do we as adults, when you see what's happening in the background, whether on the video or in our background, what's happening in our background today? Again, this is all social awareness. We've got political conflict, we've got corona, we've got pandemic, we've got high unemployment, we've got remote learning. I mean, you can listen, this is a whole, this is this is a lesson by itself, you guys. How do we as adults take responsibility so that we can ensure the children behind us are not affected by our decisions, in healthcare, our decisions in education, our decisions in corporate America, our decisions with recreation, how do we, what should we do as adults? And it would be so interesting to hear that from children. What does a child need, or what does your student need from their adult? I like the word now, instead of saying, let me talk to your parent or guardian, they'll say, let me talk to your grown-up, right? Because I mean, some students don't have parents or guardians. It's just somebody taking responsibility. And so that word now, there's that transition from parents, guardians to the grown-up. What do you need from that grown-up in your life that would make you feel that your future is secure? Social awareness, okay? This is from, Time Magazine, I mentioned it earlier. And then the last theme, and this is going to be in a workbook, so if I'm moving through these scenes too fast or what have you, I'm along with the video. If you're watching this in our Canvas course, there is an accompanying, that word always gets me, accompanying workbook. And that way it sort of has the images and notes where you can just kind of flip through or look at the video again and take your notes again and make it personal and make it applicable to you in this population of students that you work with. And so the last theme that I pulled out of this particular lesson was using social media responsibly. And this was found on popbuzz.com. This article was written by Nikki Adika. Hope I did that right. And Nikki says the kids in the balcony are recording all the mayhem with cell phones. And in the actual lyrics, you'll hear the celly. Okay, and that's what he's referring to. But there's also the jail cell too. Look at the bars. So this child, Donald Glover, was like a lyrical genius and there's so much more, right? I for the sake of time, I only pulled out these three, but so many symbolisms and hidden truths and subliminals. It would just take you a minute to uncover all of what he has disclosed in this video. Excuse me. So, yeah, celly can represent cell phone, but it can also represent a jail cell. I mean, look at how that's set up, the bars, right? Looking out, leaning over the thing. So, but anyway, just for the sake of it, for all intents and purposes, we're gonna just focus on the cell phones. Our young people having the cell phones, and Nikki says the kids in the balcony are recording all the mayhem with cell phones, which has been a tool to capture incidents of police violence and broadcast them. Now I want to explore that and sort of expand that a little bit, and I want to sort of, I don't know, blend that into using social media, because yeah, cell phones are used to record incidences of law enforcement, but they're also used for a lot of other reasons, right? When there's a fight at school, what happened? We're pulling out that cell phone instead of calling for help. And I think that was a scene that we saw in the video, that instead of them, the bystanders, the onlookers calling for help, they were recording it. And so this is a good way to talk about using social media responsibly. Before you hit like or before you hit share, is it helpful? Is that being socially aware? Are you considering how another person may interpret what you are co-signing or what you are agreeing to? Have you considered the other person on the side of the fence? Have you looked at something from their perspective? Are you hearing it from one point of view? Did you give the other person an opportunity to share their truths? So again, you can develop some really good discussion, pose a lot of questions. So again, I just use creative liberty here. I didn't want to, I mean, and you can, right? I mean, we're kind of in the heat of that age right now where cell phones are recording incidents of police brutality and so much more. But I would drive it more toward just the overall, how are we using social media? What affects, how is the usage of cell phones affected our social awareness? You know, what perspective when you record something, because listen, and they're trending and they can say, well, you photoshopped it. But even with the recording, you can record just what you want people to see, right? And you can just turn it off. And so even sometimes video, when you think about the news, if you've ever been not interrogated, interviewed, you can do a 30-minute interview, right? Conduct a 30-minute television news interview, and by the time you sit down and watch the news and tell your friends, you've got a 30-second clip where they've only captured maybe one sentence. I remember a time I was marching in Washington many years ago and was interviewed by this, I can't remember now who it was. And I sat and had a beautiful conversation with this young lady. And by the time I watched the news, she recorded 3 words or 3 phrases. And I was like, wow. So even in that, right, news media is biased. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. So this is going to make for some good discussion. You can print pictures and sort of show that so that the students can just kind of refresh their memory of the video. Again, I would not show the video. That's just me personally. I would not play the song. But you can pull certain lyrics out and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or maybe have the group kind of rap to it. I mean, again, some of you, you guys are awesome in what you do, and you can make it work. So in closing, you this is a quote by John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Excuse me. One person can make a difference, and everyone should try. Right? One person can make a difference, but everybody should try to make a difference. And so in social awareness, again, we're going to pay attention. We're going to be aware of how another person feels, how they think, what their perspectives are. We don't have to agree, but let's give them that opportunity to share. Hey, what do you think about this? Well, I disagree, but thank you for sharing. you know. So in closing, remind your students of implicit and explicit biases that manifest in our behavior toward others. So an implicit bias, and this is by Kendra Cherry, is an unconscious association. It's implicit. It's something I feel is intrinsic and true to me. It is my own association, belief, my attitude toward a social group. Whatever social group, it can be a race, it can be a religion, it can be a career, it could be a community, it could be a government, it could be a country, or whatever. It's my own belief. And so due to that implicit bias, I'm going to react a certain way, which is known as stereotyping, because I did not give that person an opportunity to hear their thought. Or why are you that way? Why do you do that? Right? It's my own personal belief. But then you also want to focus on the explicit biases and understand that uh, explicit is your way that you react or respond to someone. In other words, you're outwardly showing. Now, how I feel is how I feel. You may never know that until I tell you. But explicitly, you're going to see it in my behavior. You're going to see it in my conduct. And, it's going to be intentional. I mean to make you feel uncomfortable, right? Whereas if it is implicit, it's how I believe. I may think about you a certain way. You know what I'm saying? But you may not know that. But if it's explicit, you're going to know, man, every time I'm around Miss Fields, I feel uncomfortable. I feel like she doesn't like me. So that's, part of being socially aware is being aware of how you make others feel, how comfortable others are around you. And are you making a difference with these biases? Okay. Well, you all, this is coming to an end. We're coming to an end. You always, well, it's a rule of thumb, I'd say, to check in and check out. Um, based upon the nature of your conversation, you may have students here. Well, I feel disappointed in in whatever, or I feel confused. I feel frustrated. There's so much is going on right now in my city, and I feel like nobody's doing anything about it. Acknowledge that, okay? Acknowledge that and assure them, you may not see it, but there are people fighting behind the scenes for you to have a bright future. So you want to acknowledge it, but then also, provide that emotional support. Please don't release anyone in red in your group. Walk them across the street. Take that time, even if you have to pull them for a one-on-one. You may have to go and grab them at lunch and say, "Hey, let's go walk. Let's talk. I noticed after in group you said you were feeling anxious or uneasy. Let's talk about it." Walk them across the street. Okay. So pause and check on your students' emotions. Make sure they're okay before closing the group. If not, please set aside time to help them transition out of the group successfully. And that concludes my presentation for this SEL starter group. I certainly hope that it's been beneficial to you. Again, you don't have to use what I've um, uh, provided for you. These are just some ideas that you can adapt. You can use a different song, you can use a movie, you can use a quote. Just these are just some ideas to kind of get your creative juices flowing. And and I certainly hope that you're able to that you're benefiting from them. So here's my contact information. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, I look forward to supporting you in any way that I can. If you would like me to assist you with maybe developing some lesson plans, I would love to do that. Just send me an email and we'll set up time to talk or what have you. We'll Zoom. Everything is Zooming now. And you tell me what you need, and I'll do the very best that I can to support you. I also work with a great team. Within student discipline and behavior support. There's one team in particular that I'm working closely with, which is our behavior support team, and that's Mr. David Spellman, Mr. Moses Balls, and myself. And so we would be so happy to support you. Just reach out to the department, and we'll do the best we can to get you going. So here's if you would take a few moments. I've given you several of my moments. If I could take a few of your moments and ask that you participate in this survey. You'll notice this after every video. So if you've already done several of them, unless you just want to share something, you don't really have to, but it's beneficial for me that as I continue to develop these videos, I can keep in mind what is working for you, what is not working for you, or I can maybe incorporate some additional steps if I'm moving too fast or too slow, or if I'm leaving something out that you may need for your particular population of students. Please let me know. I believe there's a segment in the survey where you can add some feedback. So I would love to hear from you. Just zoom in with your camera on this QR code. It's going to take you directly, link you directly to a survey. Won't take but a few moments, and it would provide the feedback that we I wouldn't say desperately, but that we would love to hear from you. Okay. All right. So you stay safe. May everything go well with you and yours. Until next time, take care.